Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first meeting of the Wild Hearts Monsters Development Crew. We're here today to discuss the design philosophy behind the monsters of Wild Hearts. We really want you to understand the creative process that goes into creating such interesting, intricate creatures. Take, for example, the lavaback. You see, we took a silverback gorilla and we put lava on his back, and we called him the lavaback. This one has done very well in focus groups. And then we took a rat and we made him Yucky. And then we ran out of ideas, so we just started copying monsters and their moves wholesale from Monster Hunter because they seem to know what they're doing. They have made quite a few games. Thank you everybody for coming. Never come back. All right, let me take my foot off the gas there. Maybe I was coming out of the gate a little hot, my aggression towards this game, but man, when you copy the silhouette and move of a monster from a game that you're competing against wholesale, and you just leave it in the game like that, I'm gonna use it as ammo. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm certainly not coming out here and saying that Wild Hearts is a bad game. No, it certainly isn't. It is a twist on the Monster Hunter formula, much like Dauntless was. Although right from the get-go, Dauntless has a really big advantage of being free, while Wild Hearts costs $70. Similar to Dauntless, however, Wild Hearts has a couple of unique things and spins on the formula that make it interesting, although not necessarily worth more than, say, Monster Hunter World Iceborne or Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Before I get going here, make sure you check the link in the description for the Discord where we have movie nights every Friday night, and my other socials like my Twitch account where you can come and watch me live stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays every single week. Back to the video. Wild Hearts, for those that don't know, is a Monster Hunter-like game from the guys that made the Warriors games. Omega Force. I'm talking Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives Warriors, the Jersey Shorriors. Thought of that one on the spot. The game features mostly melee-focused combat with a couple of ranged options available if you so please. You fight giant monsters known as kimonos. You fight them with big weapons, you rip their skin off, you make new clothes with it until you've run out of monsters to rip the skin off of and make clothing out of. That's how these games go. The weapons in this game are not quite as varied as the Monster Hunter games, but it does have a couple that are unique enough in their own right to where I really like them, and I would honestly love to see another Wild Hearts game or a Monster Hunter game just take these weapons because they're really cool. First one is the umbrella. You might think, how are you supposed to fight a giant monster with an umbrella? To get to the other side. The umbrella makes really quick, short attacks. It doesn't do a lot of damage per hit, but it hits multiple times per swing, and as you keep attacking and you parry monster attacks, which you can do with the right trigger, your meter will fill up, and as the meter fills up, you attack faster and you hit harder until you're basically just raining down paper cuts all over whatever monster you're fighting. It's death by 1,000 cuts, and it's very cool. There's also the Claw Blade, I think it's called, which is basically an Attack on Titan weapon where you hook yourself into the monster you're fighting and you just fling yourself around it and dive bomb it and do all kinds of cool ninja-like attacks. It's really flashy. I wasn't very good at using it, but other people are really good at it. You've also got a special hand, and with that special hand, you can make these things called karakuri, which are these wooden thingamabobs and contraptions and whatchamacallits that you create and use to fight monsters. Some of them are just things that help you traverse the environment, some of them are straight up weapons, and others are things that you have to combine smaller ones together to make. So if you want to build a giant wall that'll repel any attack, put 6 boxes together and boom, you've got a barricade. You want to make a giant laser cannon? Sure, just make sure you got all the stuff. There you go, is your giant wooden laser cannon. I don't understand how this works, but you know what? Who cares? There are other ones that you can build in bases around the different maps you go to, so you can make a forge table so you can upgrade your equipment without having to go back to town. You can build little radar fences that help you find monsters nearby. You can do all different kinds of stuff. You can get down to just decorating your base if you really want. Just make it fashion hearts. To your heart's content. All right, I'm done. You really have to learn to master the katakuri because, especially if you're fighting a monster by yourself, you need to remember how to build all these different things to help you in combat, because you can build traps that hold the monster down so you can get some free hits in, or get a breath of fresh air if you need. You can build a giant laser cannon that does tons of damage. You can build fireworks launchers that will blind monsters, and if they're trying to fly away or dive bomb you, they'll fall out of the sky and you can wail on them. They've got all different kinds of uses and they're all pretty cool. The online features of the game are very simple. You can either join a hunt that is already in progress if you're looking for a specific monster, or you can start a hunt and then open it to randos, so anybody that tries to join a session may join you. There's something I need to talk about before I go on, because I'm going to start getting into negative things and downsides of the game, so I want to talk to you about something very important. This is going to be spoiler-y, so if you don't want to hear about the end of this, the story of this game, skip to this time code. I don't really think it's vitally important to the enjoyment of the game if you are to play it. If anything, it's an endorsement from me because it's my favorite part of the game, so I implore you to listen, but if you don't want spoilers, skip. The last two fights of the main story go one right after the other. You don't go back to the hub world. There's not really a big cutscene or anything. You fight the second to last monster, which is a very fun boss fight, and then you fall into the mountain that you're on top of, and then you fight the real final boss inside the mountain. Compared to basically everything that came before it, the whole last hour of this game almost feels like a different game. Of course, the gameplay is still the same. I'm not saying that they just like throw everything out the window and it's literally a different game for the last hour, but the tonal shift and what you're doing changes so much. The second to last boss is this giant multi-elemental dragon, and it's got this like cool thing over its face that only opens up in the last phase, and it's like a dragon head inside a big fleshy flower, and he's really crazy looking and cool, and he keeps changing elements over the course of the fight and literally changing the arena around you to reflect what element he's using, which I thought was a really cool touch. It's a very involved fight. You really have to pay attention. You have to memorize the boss's moves. It's really fun compared to the other fights, I think. And then you get to the real final boss, which you think is gonna be, oh, what kind of crazy monsters? I just fought a giant dragon. What is this gonna be? And then it turns into a humanoid figure. It kind of just looks like a big man with a sword. And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then you start fighting him, and then he starts using your powers against you. Now I was not really paying attention to the end of this, but I believe it was like all the combined spirits of the hunters that came before you, kind of like the Soul of Cinder from Dark Souls 3, that kind of like homunculus amalgamation of everybody that came before you. And he starts like making the katakuri boxes on the ground, and he's bouncing off of them, and he's doing like dive bomb moves, and it gets really crazy, and the music is swelling, and it's like super dramatic, and then the cutscene right after that is super dramatic. Honestly, I could not care less about pretty much every character in this game, but the final cutscene in this I felt my eye wet just a tiny little bit, just ever so slightly. Right there. The whole last section of this game made me wish that this wasn't a Monster Hunter-like, because the last two fights made me realize it doesn't need to be. You could take this gameplay and put it in like a more somber single-player Souls-like. Take this, this story of this lone wanderer, or the last hope for humanity, whatever the main character is, right? And he's got to fight his way through these increasingly more grotesque, terraformed monsters as more of the world's spirit takes over them. You start with it's a rat with a flower on its tail, and by the end, you get these animals that are barely animal anymore. They're just completely like naturified, like Bloodborne, but instead of blood and guts, it's like, tree roots and sap and stuff like that. And just make it that, maybe I'm just being a depressed weirdo or something, but that sounds really cool to me. Oh well, that's really it for the spoilers. Like I said, not a huge deal. Like there's not a lot of, story stuff at the end anyway. The story is pretty weak throughout the whole game, but I just didn't want to spoil the ending if you didn't quite want to hear about that. Now, when this game launched, I played it for about a week. I didn't finish it. Not to say that I wasn't enjoying it when it came out, just other things came along and I got distracted and I never went back to it. Story of my friggin' life. Now, when the game first came out, I was already having trouble finding sessions for some of the hunts. More than half the time when I would try to join a session in progress for any monster outside of the very beginning of the game, I had a really hard time finding stuff. I would have to start lobbies and just hope somebody would join me. And sometimes they did, but sometimes they didn't, and that stunk. And that was a few days after the game came out. Now, as you can imagine, that has gotten much worse since then because the player count is much lower now. I ended up with the same 5 or 6 people in most of my hunts that I either joined or started on my own. I mean, I was seeing names in different languages and still recognizing them even though I didn't know what they said. Just, oh, it's that guy again. I thought for sure this game was gonna build some kind of cult following, not to rival Monster Hunter, obviously, yet. I mean, maybe in 2 or 3 more Wild Hearts games, sure, but not yet. But I mean, this game it came out and it has gone nowhere but down. Since it came out, it has not gained players, I don't think, at any point. Just sank, sunk. Now, before you poop yourself and you tell me that it's not just on Steam, so you can't just use Steam charts, got it. Listen up. We've got other metrics, but let's start with Steam charts, okay? First things first, this game barely breaks 500 people a day on Steam. That is not good for a AAA game that came out 3 months ago. Not good. Especially because it had almost 30,000 people when it launched. Whoops. Twitch Tracker tells us that anywhere from 0 to 50 people are watching this game at any given time, and only a handful of channels really stream it. You can tell me till you're blue in the face that people watching a game on Twitch or whatever does not equate to player count, but let's get real. In the modern day and age, video games, especially online ones, live and die by how popular they are to watch your favorite streamer or let's player or whatever play them and scream in the corner on Facecam. The game is not on Game Pass. There's a free trial for the game on Game Pass through EA Play, which you get if you have Game Pass. And you can get the game through EA Play Pro, I think, but that's like $15 a month if you want that. So it's not like available for free anywhere, I don't believe. It might have been on PS Plus or something, but it's not on Game Pass. It costs $70 everywhere. The cheapest way to get it is through EA Play Pro, I think, as long as you finish playing it in a month. That trial, I think, may have been a mistake because it only lets you play up through like the first couple monsters, and dude, that's the most boring part of the game. The trial is not the fun part of the game. It gets better as it goes along. The beginning is snooze city. I don't think that was the right part to have people try for the first time. They should have had a demo or something that puts you halfway through the game or something with some pre-made pretty good weapons. Give you a taste of what it's like to go ham, egg, and cheese in the game. Not a taste of what it's like to build your first weapon and fight a rat. Now we compare it to the Monster Hunter games on Steam as well. And of course, Monster Hunter games are on other platforms, just like Wild Hearts. Both of these games, I didn't know that World was going to be doing so much better. World and Rise both are doing much better than Wild Hearts is. And then it ever did. Not just now, but ever. Obviously. See, these types of monsters, God Eater, Monster Hunter, Dauntless, Wild Hearts, the main draw is the monster roster, right? That's the whole, the main character is not you. The main character is the awesome cast of monsters that you have to fight. I got some numbers here for you, ready? Dauntless has 42 monsters, 12 of which are subspecies, so truthfully, Dauntless has 30 unique monsters. Monster Hunter Rise has 66 monsters, and I could not find an answer for exactly how many of them are subspecies. I tried to count on my own, and I kept losing track of which ones were subspecies. I think there are about 20 subspecies monsters in it, so truthfully, the game has about 46 unique monsters. Wild Hearts has 22 monsters, 7 of which are subspecies, so it has 15 unique monsters. And there's a little asterisk there because there are some more on the way, and I think one has been added since the game came out. Mind you, this is an EA original developed by a team who has a lot, and I mean a lot, of experience in the industry. This is not like a little indie team. This is not our first rodeo here. And all they could come up with was 15 different monsters and then 7 subspecies. Also, Dauntless is free and it has 30 unique monsters. This game is $70. I think they came in underprepared, and that's a big part of the reason that nobody is playing, because even if everybody that did play this game when it came out, even if all 28,000 or whatever people, played it through the end, they'd be done by now. They'd all be done. Like, there's nothing left to do. There is not enough varied stuff. Yeah, you can make your damage numbers go up and you can fight the same monsters but a little harder, but do you want to? Do you have nothing better to do with your time than do that? The designs of the monsters also not very exciting. Most of them are just big animals with some nature thrown on them somewhere. I mean, some of them are, kind of cohesive. They're like all right. None of them are just outright ugly or anything. But the design philosophy feels a little too basic. Let's do a little compare and contrast, right? Okay, let's start out with the Gold Shard, which is one of the monsters from Wild Hearts. It is a giant porcupine with golden spikes coming out of his back, big crystal spikes. That's it, it's a porcupine with gold spikes. Simple, fine, whatever. Now let's look at the Toby Kadachi from Monster Hunter. If it was a Wild Hearts monster, mark my words, if this was a Wild Hearts monster, it would be a giant electric squirrel. That's it. Capcom, however, has the experience and knows that that is not quite enough, so instead of just an electric squirrel, I don't know, throw some viper DNA in there, and now he's an electric viper squirrel, which is way cooler and scarier. He's a little scary. And they even took that and did a little spin on it where they had a poisonous version where it leaned more into the viper DNA than the squirrel DNA. Good design. Now look at the porcupine with the gold chunks glued to it again. Doesn't seem as cool, right? They also for some reason decided to go with the exact same vibe as the most recent mainline Monster Hunter Rise, with this feudal Japan thing, which further fuels, the copycat feelings that I'm having here. Could you not have picked, could you have picked feudal China? Could you have picked any other country? Any other time period? Literally anything? I mean, we could have picked like feudal Detroit. Anything. Anywhere else. There's another issue that seems specific to PC gamers, and that is the game crashing. I don't know if other people have had as much of a problem on consoles. From what I hear, it seems like it's a PC thing. But when the game first launched, first launched, there were problems on PC with the game crashing and I think networking issues. There was like really bad rubber banding and disconnecting and stuff like that. Within a day or two, that was like fixed for me at least. I didn't have any problems. I think the game might have crashed like a couple times, like in 3 or 4 days worth of playing, but I didn't really think anything of that because I'm used to games crashing when you play them on PC. It happens sometimes. I didn't have any problems with the online play either. Now, months after it has come out and presumably after many patches to improve the game, not to make it worse, the game crashed, I don't know, 6 times. Like the one time that I streamed it a week ago, and even when I was offline and I was playing on my own, the game still crashed a couple times. It only stopped crashing when I put the game's graphics to the lowest possible settings on everything, and I turned on the upscaling so the game wasn't even rendering at 1080p. Mind you, I can play lots of brand new AAA games on like medium to high settings while streaming and recording just fine and they don't crash. This game is an unstable mess. It's like, you know, cool that it doesn't crash as much now that I have it on potato settings, but now I have it on potato settings and I gotta look at this. What upsets me is that they had a lot of good ideas that were squandered by being in this game that not a crazy amount of people played when it came out. This game's never gonna go back up. No way. It's not gonna match its peak again. I would be surprised if anybody came back to this game, even with a giant free expansion. Back to the good ideas, and that's the karakuri is the first, you know, big one. I mean, I can make a big wooden laser beam. How does that work? It doesn't matter. I can make a wheelie mobily thing and motor around. It's cool. It's actually really not that useful, and it breaks if you hit like anything with it, but it looks cool. Fun idea. Some of the weapons, like I was saying before, the umbrella, the claw blade thing, really cool, fun ideas that I really liked using even when I wasn't good at using them. Dude, that umbrella's parry window, it's like I'm not good at using it, but I still try to use it. And oh man, they made this lady, and God, what a babe. I salute you. Oh, I just remembered that sometimes the characters in this game will randomly throw Japanese words in with their I played it with the English dub and everything, and every once in a while, like a sweaty anime nerd, the character will just throw in an arigato or a konnichiwa or a gozaimasu or whatever. They'll just randomly throw it in there, and it's like, ew. I know it's supposed to be fake mystical Japan, but it's also supposed to be the English dub. So why in the English dub would they say random Japanese words? Anime nerd. Unlike a lot of dead games that I cover, this one can be fully and completely enjoyed single player. And honestly, this sounds weird and goes against the ethos of the game, you know, calling in people to help, but really, once you learn how to really use the karakuri to your advantage, you don't need other people. You're a one-man army, and it's really cool, and it feels empowering in a way almost. It feels good to take down a monster with your ingenuity and the stuff that you build and just whittling it down. It feels really good and fun, and you don't really need other people, so you don't have to worry about the player count to enjoy this one. You can just play it single player. I'm not here to tell you not to play the game. I'm just telling you that nobody's playing it. That's all. It's not to say it's bad or you shouldn't try it. I implore you to try the game. If you've got Game Pass, you've got a little trial, so you can try out the opening area. Maybe it'll hook you better than it hooked me. I mean, I was planning on playing through the whole game anyway because it's a Monster Hunter-like, and I love Monster Hunter, so I'm contractually obligated to play it to the end. But I would understand not doing that. Honestly, I could barely even ever get people to join my game anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you want to play multiplayer because you might not have a choice soon. It is almost worth it for the end of the main story. I mean, it was so good, dude. It was the last hour of this game was like, yes, that's what I needed. But I needed it for the whole game, not just the end. I need more of that. As it stands, it seems like nobody really ever talked about the game. Nobody seems to be talking about it now, and I highly doubt that anybody will be talking about it within a few months, aside from the random person whose mom buys it for them for their birthday and they have to, you know, look up all the info. And I'm describing an imaginary person. I hope nobody's mom got them Wild Hearts for their birthday. Happy birthday! Here's a dead game.
I hate you, son.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If indeed you've made it this far, I greatly appreciate it. Make sure you like, you comment, and you subscribe. I'd like to hear if any of you guys play the Monster Hunter games or if you played Wild Hearts. What are your thoughts and opinions on the game, on the genre in general? I'd like to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. Let me know. Don't forget to join the Discord for movie night every Friday night at 7 p.m. And don't forget to hit up my Twitch for a stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, 3 nights a week. And make sure you tune into the next video where I crawl under the porch and I take a dump. See ya.